Hello, creeps. It's me, John Kassir, the voice of the Crypt Keeper, and you're listening to Chronicles from the Crypt.
Hello there, I'm Casualty Chris.
And this is Father Malone.
And we are the hosts of Chronicles from the Crypt, a twice-a-month look at the HBO horror anthology series, Tales from the Crypt.
Oh, in every episode of our podcast, we're going to be doing two episodes of the show. And along the way, we're going to have some bonus episodes, which we've had quite a few already, covering some tangentially related Tales from the Crypt ephemera, like movies and game shows and kids shows and other related Tales things.
Yes, the children's game show, again, as we've mentioned before, is absolute garbage.
Yeah, don't watch that shit.
No, please don't.
There'll be no revival.
No. Well, there's not even going to be a revival of this, so...
Well, more likely to get this than the other.
Oh, yeah, exactly. But, so they claim we're not getting this either because apparently the family has no interest in... the family has no interest in giving up any more control to anyone else. The Gaines' family, as it were. So... But,
good for them.
Yeah, good for them is right. Considering how it's M. Night Shyamalan remaking it, and that's what they were talking about, yeah, no thanks. However, on this episode of Chronicles from the Crypt, we are going to be taking a look at episodes 7 and 8 of Season 3, The Reluctant Vampire and Easel Kill Ya.
I want to suck your blood. That's not right. I want to suck your blood. No, that's not it. I want to suck... Oh, hello, kiddies. You caught me in the middle of my homework. Your old pal, the Crypt Keeper's a real believer in continuing deducation. Which brings us to tonight's murderous morsel. It's a juicy little tale about a real bloodsucker who never learned to go for the jugular. I call this plasma play The Reluctant Vampire.
The Reluctant Vampire was released on July 10th, 1991. It is directed by Elliot Silverstein, written by Terry Black, and stars Malcolm McDowell, Sandra Dickinson, George Wendt, and Michael Berryman, who we do have a little bit of an interview with. It also has Paul Gleason in it. Always nice to see Paul Gleason in something that's not a John Hughes film. The episode centers... The episode centers around a good-natured vampire, played by Malcolm McDowell, who takes an interesting approach to satisfying his bloodlust, and then, things start happening. Father Malone, what did you think of this episode?
I like this one.
Yeah, see? Right?
Yeah, you and I had talked about it before, and I had bad memories of it, but I think I was confusing it with another episode or something, or I perhaps had never even seen this one, but I actually really enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun. Too often the comedy episodes are the least favorite of mine, but this one seems to have a good tone to it. And I'm not sure it would work as well as it does without Malcolm McDowell, but he is in it, and he's really good in it. Shockingly good. Not that I'm shocked that he's a good actor or anything, but we're so used to him being either a total fucking psychopath or a total fucking psychopath. So to see him playing kind of a vulnerable, sort of sad sack character was really enjoyable. You wonder why he didn't take on more roles where he sort of could stretch in other directions. But overall, this is a good one, I think.
Yeah, no, it's, like you said, it's a lot better than I remember it being. There's a lot of kind of bits, there's a lot of beats that I found pretty funny and pretty interesting and pretty good, honestly. Anything where it's him kind of having to hide his teeth was pretty great. Also, when he's like jumping on a corpse to drain all the blood, thought that was an interesting gag. I mean, it's not...
Yeah, man, I really liked that a lot. Like, I found myself actually laughing out loud at that. which is rare in one of these episodes. That the comedy is always just kind of like a bit of a chuckle, maybe. But that something about that scene, about him like pressing the corpse and squeezing it and jumping up and down on it to get every last drop of blood, was really funny.
Well, and again, let's not make any bones about it. A lot of this also stems from the fact that it's Malcolm McDowell.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of can't get away from it. You're watching Malcolm McDowell do this crazy shit, and he's so good at it. I don't think all the comedy works in this. I think it's heavily overwritten as far as what the writer thought was going to be funny. I think they kind of keep throwing out like advertising slogans like after some horrible thing happens, as if that's just hilarious on its own. And I wish they had kind of calmed down on that, because the rest of it was good.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Like It is a comedy episode that it does have parts that do not land, but I would say that the parts that land a lot harder than ones that don't, if that makes sense. Yeah,
no, absolutely. What's actually funny in the episode is really funny, but it seems like the ones that are just sort of a concept for comedy, they end up both the director and the actors manage to elevate, but the ones that are just sort of written on the page, they might have been funny when you were reading them, but they kind of come off lame when they're delivered.
Which has been most of the comedy episodes up until this point.
Almost all of them. I mean, only a couple of them so far have been worthy of the series.
Yeah. And I mean, you've got some players in this episode who are actually, I mean, really great actors. I mean, obviously Malcolm McDowell. I'm not a huge fan of Clockwork Orange, but I can appreciate his acting ability. George Wendt is actually pretty good as the sleazy kind of boss. You've got Michael Berryman, who I feel like he's underused in the episode. Really, it feels almost like an unnecessary. I mean, it's a means to an end for the conclusion, the climax of the episode, but his character almost feels unnecessary. He ends up being a bumbling character.
Yeah, exactly. Like this vampire expert that everyone is like making fun of can't even recognize a human over a vampire by the end. So that didn't make a whole lot of sense.
Well, again, I think it's just to show that like that guy is a total idiot.
Yeah.
But like, why even put the character in there then?
Yeah, it felt like a detour every time we went to the cops. Like, who cares? We're really dealing with the story of 3 characters in a potential love triangle.
Oh, God, right. Jeez. No more fucking love triangles, man. But, I mean, again, that's kind of the thing I liked about this episode, is that it isn't just the usual bullshit love triangle comedy thing. And there's like a little bit of the supernatural because he's a vampire, but I mean, they kind of downplay it a lot because they're trying to say that, vampires aren't, they said vampires aren't doing what they are, they don't turn into bats and all that nonsense as well. So they're like trying to kind of ground
it. They front load that information.
Yeah. But I mean, look, again, when we're talking about episodes this season, we're talking about essentially we're over halfway. This is the halfway point of the season here. 7 and 8. There have been comedy episodes this season. There's actually been a lot of comedy episodes this season. There's been Love to Death. There's been The Trap. There's been Top Billing. And of those, I mean, I think that this one is probably the best one because, again, very rarely do we see a sympathetic character in Tales from the Crypt on top of everything else.
That is true.
It's very rare to see a sympathetic character
we like a lot and we want them to succeed, and they do. It's like a unicorn.
Yeah. And that, I think, is the biggest takeaway from this episode, is that we are given a sympathetic character for once, which is like a rare fucking thing for this show. Very rare.
But not unwelcome.
No, for sure. And that's the other thing with this show that, like, I love this show to death. I mean, obviously, we're sitting here talking about it right now. But the thing about this show that I do feel like gets kind of lost in the shuffle is there are very few episodes of the show that have positive endings and characters that you actually want to root for.
Yeah, I was kind of expecting them to go the other way and have it end up bad for our leads. That was pretty good, I guess. Having the police and the Rupert Van Helsing. Good
Rupert. Lord. What a doofy ass name.
Haha, comedy gold, Rupert. Like having all of them sort of converge at his place at the end, like, at least convinced me that somehow this was going to end up poorly for him. So, it worked in that way. But you're right. It's so rare for us to really like a character and have them come out on top. And, I was glad they did because I liked him a lot. It was a pretty great character.
If you do not like Malcolm McDowell's character, you will have very little to no interest in this episode. You will probably be annoyed by this episode from the get-go. So
that is true. But then, you could say that about any piece of entertainment. If you don't like the lead, you're not going to like the film.
I'm talking more about in the fact that Tales from the Crypt, if you don't like the lead, normally you're they're gonna get theirs. In this, it's if you don't like the lead, he doesn't get his comeuppance, because this is one of the few episodes where the lead does not get their comeuppance, because there's no comeuppance to get.
So let me just talk about this for 1 second. So he was a security guard at a blood bank, and he's been drinking all the blood.
He's the night watchman.
Night watchman, right?
Because they can't go out in the day.
Yeah. Aha, smart.
I found that to be pretty clever.
It was clever. I don't know that it necessarily needs to work, but why? Oh, here's something that actually kind of bothers me about it, is that he is a non-traditional vampire in almost every way, except for his furnished house, which feels like it's just the typical haunted house from, an Abbott and Costello movie. It was a little bit weird.
Straight out of the backlot at Universal, dude.
Yeah, just not great. But
no.
I did like the idea of a Murphy bed being a coffin. Thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of bits and gags in this that I really liked, and that was one of them.
But to my point, so the blood bank is going to close down because they don't have enough supply. So he starts killing criminals and draining their blood.
But how does he know what blood type they are?
I guess he tastes it.
No, he's literally pumping it all into one thing, and then...
That was a little weird, too, right? That didn't make any sense. I thought that as well. You're just mixing all of it together.
We're reading way too much into this. Right?
Yeah, I know.
But, at the same time, that is the main conceit of the episode, is that he is going and draining blood to fix the blood bank.
And if you're gonna, have a scene where he's making himself a cocktail and he's a little AB and some O positive, clearly they brought up the fact that humans have different blood types. Why is he mixing it all together in a water cooler jug?
Yeah, which I do like the visual of that, him pumping that out of the, a giant, an office water cooler. I found that to be really just kind of...
Yeah, that was really funny, just heaving it over his shoulder and walking away jauntily.
It's dorky, but in a way that works for the character.
Yeah. Well, I forget the exact number, but they said, we now have this many pints of blood. It ended up being, something like 50 people. I did the math. It was 50 people he had killed in, a matter of a week or something. He should calm down, man. The police are coming for him.
They said 9 pints is in a human body.
Yeah, well, there's 9 pints in the human body.
Right.
And it ended up being some, we're 500 pints above the where we're supposed to be.
Yeah, what the fuck? Holy shit. There's just people in the streets, just dead bodies littering the streets of this town.
That's what I'm saying, man. It's it's okay if it's 1 or 2 and, disposed of the bodies, but this is a crime wave he's committing.
Yeah, but he's only killing bad people. So it's like Dexter.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Dexter before Dexter.
But I like this episode. I think this episode is a lot better the third time I've watched it now. Because I genuinely...
I don't think that we need to name him Longtooth.
Well... That's my thinking. The writers are just laughing to themselves like assholes, get it, guys? Oh my god, we get it. Longtooth, he's a vampire.
And this is Terry Black, who wrote "Dig That Cat, He's Real Gone" and one other episode. He wrote one last season as well. I think. Oh, he wrote the fucking cartoonist one with Harry Anderson.
Yeah, that episode is. Whew. Yikes.
Not great.
No, not great. However, this is a good episode. So this is
good. He kind of redeemed himself.
This is a definite watch from me.
Yeah, this is a watch as well. I think this is a pretty good meld of comedy and horror. And if you like blood, you're getting gallons of it here.
Yep. And blood cocktails.
Delicious.
What initially drew you to the role of Rupert Van Helsing in the episode The Reluctant Vampire?
Well, I got a call from my agent, and they had requested me for the role. So, being a working actor, I said sure, and it's a classic part. So I said sure, let's do it. I mean, actors don't turn down work, especially if you're requested.
Right.
Yeah.
For you personally, are you requested often?
Oh, pretty much. I've been doing this for many decades, so I oftentimes get an inquiry to my manager as to my availability. So that is appreciated. If you've been in this business as long as I have, over 40 years, it's gratifying and appreciated to be, not going to say requested. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. And when you accepted the part for Tales from the Crypt, did you know that you were going to be working with Malcolm McDowell?
No, I did not. No, but when I arrived on the set, I was very pleased to meet Malcolm. He was just a total team player, an actor's actor, very open, friendly. I just felt like I was with family. The same with George. Malcolm was great. George was hilarious. It was a nice episode. I liked the wardrobe was really cool. I liked the glasses, the whole look, the whole how can I put it? The way the role came together, I thought worked very well.
Right, and and in the episode, you're playing one of the classic characters. A kind of a spin on it. Did you do anything in particular to prepare for the role? And I probably should have asked this question first, so it'll be interesting editing on my end. But what was your exposure to Tales from the Crypt prior to being in the episode?
I was a big fan. I actually met a gentleman who did the puppet,
the Crypt Keeper.
The Crypt Keeper, and how I had a lot of friends who were model makers and special effects artists. So to see how that worked, that was very, very cool. In fact, I like the wraparounds, the wraparounds, the bookend aspect of the Crypt Keeper, making comments, commentary, and kind of whetting your appetite for what you're going to experience. I liked it. I thought it was a lighthearted approach and kind of show the whole family could enjoy. And that's pretty rare, these days.
Right. Well, and, from a fan standpoint, a lot of people have only seen the Crypt Keeper aspect of the show. They don't realize that there's an actual show connected with what the Crypt Keeper is. A lot of people that I've talked to have been like, oh, you mean the show with the Crypt Keeper? Sort of. But the show is more of a modern day Twilight Zone. It's an anthology show, obviously.
Okay, yeah.
Right.
I know that.
Right. It's more of a horror tales. It's more of a horror Twilight Zone.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of, certainly, yeah, absolutely.
Obviously for you being in horror films, did you kind of feel right at home on the set of Tales from the Crypt since it was a horror anthology?
I like comedy. I like good storytelling. I didn't see it as a horror role, and I've done. It's funny because I've only done, one or two horror films, and they were quite notable. So it kind of, gave me the uncrowned king of horror, which is fine. I liked Tales because it had a variety of stories, and again, I'm a big fan of shows that the entire family can. I'm closing my gate here, Rick.
No, you're fine.
There we go. Okay. I like the variety of the storytelling. It's always something different. It's not the same old, and you never know what to expect. Kind of things can catch you by surprise, which is quite lovely.
Well, and that's the great thing about an anthology show, right? Is that it has this rotating cast, differing stories, everything kind of is quick storytelling, very tight storytelling.
Very straight. Yeah, exactly. They cut out the fat. It's very lean. It's lean writing. Tales has a tendency. Well, number one, I love the artwork. There's 4 panels that the artist will ink and color, and the director chooses 2, and then there's 2 that they don't use. I actually have the 2 that were not used that the artist gave to me as a gift, which they are highly prized.
Right. You're talking about the thing that the camera focuses on before the episode starts, correct?
Yeah, and there's also a breakaway halfway point.
Right, of course.
And it depicts your character and what's going on in the scene, and it's very, very cool. It's tight writing. It's not, and the fact that there's different players for each episode, I think, is great. I like to see my fellow actors working, but also the format was unique because you had new characters all the time. You wouldn't, as a viewer, have a preconceived notion as to how people are going to interact. So I found that to be very much a plus. It created a lot of interest. I think it kept it always fresh. The Tales was always fresh. Every episode was fresh, even if it wasn't particularly something that you go, oh wow, this is really rotten. But I could always enjoy it on not every level. At least it was always a very satisfying experience.
Right. So the episode that you're in particular, The Reluctant Vampire, it's more comedic than a lot of, like you said, it's more comedic than 90% of the episodes of the show.
Oh yeah, I think the saddest part was the when George Wendt is harassing McDowell and he's telling him, squirts him with the holy water, and basically tells him, I own you.
Right.
Okay. It sets up the challenge. It sets up his demise. I like how he jumped on the body to get extra blood out and what have you. And it set up the the predicament and the challenge for his character. How am I going to deal with this? And I like the way it ended.
Right. The way the ending is very smart. In the way that it's done. I think that the ending really stands out as one of the better Tales from the Crypt endings.
Yeah, it's not a caricature, or it's not a puppeteered resolution to what's going on.
Right.
The switch was quick. It was intercut, boom, 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 boom. So there wasn't a lot of lingering on the fact that poor George. He was boom. He wakes up. Well, I killed the wrong guy. It's fast paced. You get involved right away. A lot of meat on the bone, but it's concise.
Right.
And it moves well. And it's for television, so you have to have your breakaways for commercials, etc. I think it's successful on a production standpoint and also on a viewer's enjoyment level. And as far as acting in it, I had a very, very good time. I had a challenge from the director. Actually, I'm a pretty frank talking guy. The director, I don't think he'd done anything since Paint Your Wagon. And at the end, when I said, well, it had to be Lieutenant, he made me do that take, I think, 14 times. 14 times. And he started to get very upset. He said, stop. It's actually happened. Now he said, stop putting emphasis on the hard consonant B. So, so I tried it every single way I could, finally to the point of where I literally said, well, it had to, and it had, just ignoring the B consonant. And he threw up his hands and he goes, well, that's it. I'll just have to go with what you gave me. I don't understand why you can't follow direction. And, I've used every trick in my arsenal that I know of to get what I want.
Right.
He walked off the set. At that point, George Wendt sits up in the butler bed coffin and looks me straight in the eye. And he just gave me a high five. And he says, "Don't worry about it. He's been that way to everybody, all the guest stars, and it's just your day. You did fine. Even Malcolm, the same way." So that actually happened, and that's actually how it came about. So it's it's a joint effort to make any production, and it's nice when you have time to work a scene. Television is not that way, unless you're a regular and you're in every episode.
Right.
So we did the best we could. It's a fan favorite. I very much enjoyed it, and I think it did a good job.
Well, and this kind of gets back to something you were saying about the director. How quickly was it filmed? I mean, it sounds like it was fairly quickly filmed piece of television.
I think I was in and out in a day.
Oh, wow.
I think we shot it in a day. I don't remember coming back. I think we shot it in one long day.
Wow, that's impressive.
I mean, it could have been two, but what I recall is that it was one long day, and that was it. What I'm telling you is exactly how it came about.
Did you follow the show after you were on the Reluctant Vampire episode?
Yes, I did. Yes, I would watch it occasionally. I watched many episodes.
Yeah.
So it's a fun series.
I think that in this day and age, there's kind of a void left by a show like Tales from the Crypt. There aren't any anthology shows on TV anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think that those anthology shows are a great way for actors to kind of showcase their abilities, new and upcoming directors to showcase their abilities as well. And I think that there's kind of a void left by a show like Tales from the Crypt, unfortunately.
Well, that's true. There's not a lot of. I don't know of a lot of shows where they change directors every episode. I mean, the X-Files rotated a few, and that was delightful. But you're right. Times have changed. A lot of stuff is written differently these days.
Right.
A lot of different content. A lot of different, from streaming videos. I mean, you name it. I mean, we are definitely in the electronic age.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
A lot out there, and I think the biggest challenge is good writing. It must be very, very difficult to write something and then have it rewritten according to your market base. I understand how the industry and business part works, but I've worked on some television episodes where we would get, 6 or 7 or 8 different colored sheets for the script. At the last minute they go, we've rewritten, like 8 pages. Okay, here, change it. Here, memorize this. So it's a different animal than feature film. I like all pretty much all medias. Like music videos, I've done a couple of notable ones, and I think it would be nice if you could have more time to work with the writers, but they're cranking them out, so you don't.
Right.
You a lot of times you don't even get the script until a few days before.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Or they'll even let you have them just on the set because that was like before the internet was all everywhere, and so then there wasn't the issue of a spoiler alert. But the studios were very pretty keep their they try to maintain control of their product and their storytelling. But I always felt that Tales is fresh, different directors, every episode's a different theme, different idea, and a lot of guest stars that were family names, well known. I always liked it.
So let's move on to Easel Kill Ya.
Greetings, art lovers. Vincent Van Gogh here with another morbid masterpiece sure to paint you into a coroner. Something's not quite right. Ah, yes. Now that's a still life. Tonight's tale concerns a painter who's tired of people giving his work the brush. I call this pestilent portrait of the artist as a young mangler Easel Kill Ya.
So Easel Kill Ya aired June 17th, 1991. It is directed by John Harrison, written by Larry Wilson, stars Tim Roth, Roya McNaught, and a little actor you may recognize, Mr. William Atherton, otherwise known as, it's true, Your Honor, this man has no dick.
Yes, professional asshole William Atherton.
Yes, professional asshole William Atherton, otherwise known as the asshole in Ghostbusters and in Die Hard. And the episode centers around Tim
Real
Roth.
Genius.
Never seen it.
Oh, Jesus. Okay, sorry, continue.
The episode centers around Tim Roth as a painter who sells his morbid paintings to a wealthy patron and gets himself embroiled in a vicious cycle of having to kill people to make vicious paintings of death.
Death paintings.
This episode is bad, right? Like, it's not great.
No, you're wrong.
Oh, come on. The climax of this episode is so dorky.
Okay.
See that you're a painter. Bum, bum, bum. Like, that's the music at the end. The music at the end should have been the fucking Curb Your Enthusiasm. Bum, 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 ba-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Because that's literally what happens. He pulls the paintbrush out, there's blood on it, Tim Roth's face, and then the blinds close. And it's just fucking the Curb Your Enthusiasm music. Somebody make that, please, because that's the way this episode ends. It's so dorky.
Okay, I will concede that the ending...
Yeah, you will. You fucking
needs
will.
work, yes, no question. Even before that, when he let's just talk about the whole episode before we just disseminate the ending here.
Yeah, what about when William Atherton and Tim Roth are having sex in a bed together?
Oh my God, man. Come on, that was great.
I mean, it was something. I'm not sure great.
That was shocking.
It was, yeah, I don't remember that. And I'm sure if you were listening to this episode right now and you have not watched the episode recently, you don't remember it either.
I bet they don't. I certainly hadn't remembered it. I remembered not liking this episode, but I actually liked it a great deal. I thought, look, you know what? It's easy to kind of dismiss someone like Tim Roth now, who's had like such a long career and he's been lauded over and over again. But I think he's really good in it. And William Atherton is fucking great in this episode. That's an unusual character, and I really liked him a lot. And I liked, I liked the sort of the murdery aspects of it. It reminds me of a movie called Bucket of Blood. It's a Roger Corman movie with Dick Miller, who is like a frustrated sculptor who starts killing people and then just putting clay over them and making them into grotesque things, and everyone he becomes like the toast of the beatnik community. Very similar to that, but clearly this was written long before that because it was the comic. But all right, you know what? Let me talk about the ending. I like how now you're going to be fixated on the fact that the ending is so dumb. Yes, because the problem is, like, I was on board with the episode until the ending, and at the end I was just like, and there you done ruined it. You done ruined it. Yeah, no, even before the police officer has the paintbrush and now they've connected him to the crime, when they say, like, we've got our surgeon, he's on the way here, and then he walks out and immediately grabs a guy who's taking a briefcase out of his car, it was clear that that's the surgeon. That was, for me, more clumsy than the final ending. It was clear he was a surgeon to everyone except for Tim Roth. Right. See, that's the issue with this episode, is it almost treats the audience like they're stupid. Like, we can't pick up on that ourselves. Right? Yeah. I mean, that's true. And it felt like kind of a time crunch there at the end, which it needn't have been, because we spend so much time with that girl that, maybe we could have cut down one of their scenes here or there, or, a scene of him painting and not, getting it together or something. I don't know. It did feel really rushed at the end. But everything up until then, even the idea of how the twist sort of works, I like a lot, that he went out and killed that person. Irony is good for the blood and all. But, it's hard for me to defend it now that I'm thinking about this ending. Yeah, you're welcome. But I do like the episode a lot. And it's, John Harrison, the director, is one of these guys that I admire a great deal. If only because before he started directing, he was a composer, and he wrote the music for George Romero's film Creep Show. He was one of Romero's original team. He worked on all of the 70s films and directed a lion's share of Tales from the Dark Side episodes. He has always been visually an interesting filmmaker. My usual criticism of how set-bound and fakey everything looks can never come across with this guy, because I thought he shot it spectacularly well. But, and the performances are good, but, I don't know. I can't keep lauding it, I guess. Well, and that's the thing. That's the thing with the episode, is like it is an interesting episode, and it's an interesting concept, and there are some good beats. But when you get to the end, it for me sours everything. It just really does. I mean, it ends up being just sort of a straight ahead non-supernatural episode, and I think it could have used a little bit of the supernatural here. It seems like they were kind of setting it up with the William Atherton character, like, you know, he just keeps offering more and more money for worse and worse murders. I will say, now this is not a comedy episode, but there's a moment when after the first murder and he's decided he's going to do it again, when he's talking to the landlady and she says, like, you know, I could fall down those stairs and break my neck, and he turns around and says, you want some help? That made me laugh out loud as well.
Best bit in the entire episode.
Yeah, and that's because Tim Roth played it so fucking straight. Like, there was no winking at the audience there.
No, there wasn't, and that's what I liked about it. Is it just goes straight into it. It just goes straight into that beat.
Yeah, and the shot and the cut there even is perfect with her tumbling down the stairs. Like, that was. There's a lot to like in this episode, I guess.
No, there is, but for me, the ending is just like, oh my god, it's such a dork fest, right? It's so goofy and cheesy, and it doesn't work. And yeah, I don't know how else to explain it. It's just such a weird way to end the episode, because the episode isn't comedic, but then at the end, it acts like it is.
A little bit of a Three's Company wrap up there at the end.
Yeah.
Dun-dun-dun.
Right, that's kind of what I was expecting. Something just like that, where it's like da-da-da-da-da-da. It's like, what?
They might have, yeah. Maybe I'll do that. I'll cut that together.
Yeah, but other than that, I think Tim Roth is great.
Yeah, he's real good in it, and the sort of relationship between him and William Atherton is interesting. I wish it had been a little bit more of that. I don't know. Overall, I'm going to say this is a watch for me.
I'll say it's a watch, but if you, God, no, it's not for me. No. They didn't push the idea of the episode far enough. They didn't push the concept far enough. They should have gone farther. They should have cut the B plot with the girl out and done just more of him murdering people.
Yeah, I agree. And for this patron, and, you know, it should have been more centered on him and the art. And
you want to know how I would have written this? I would have written this, the last thing he has to do is William Atherton's character goes, now fucking murder me, and like turn me into a painting. Like, that's what would have been the right way to end it. Is William Atherton is such a sadist that he's like, I want you to fucking murder me and turn me into a painting. And like, that's the way it should have ended.
Yeah, or at the very least, like, he ends up being the last victim, you know?
Or Tim Roth kills himself to like...
Yeah, something. Yeah. That's the problem with most of these. Like, everyone is still stuck in this idea that you gotta have, like, a girl or a kid, you know? It's like the Barton Fink method of screenwriting. And not necessary. We're willing to follow any character on any path. You've got 28 minutes. Go to town. Like, you know, Tales from the Crypt as a series could be seen like as basically an incubator for people who want to, like, you know, stretch out a bit. That they're not going to be constrained by typical Hollywood, 3-act structure and characterization. So it's weird that they don't take more risks than they did.
No, a lot of these episodes end up being very formulaic, and I think that this is one of them.
Yeah.
Almost to a fault, it's formulaic. So,
nevertheless, I'm giving it total points on style and performance, and the tone of it I liked a lot. It felt more serious than any of the other ones, and that was refreshing in a way. Particularly after so many comedy episodes this season. Like, it was nice to have the characters, you know, actually being humans and adults and dealing with their shit, as opposed to just like, wah, wah, here's a funny line.
Or making love in a bed together.
Yeah, well, that's weird, man.
I don't know what that was all about, so it was like getting in his head, I guess. Was William Atherton supposed to be the devil?
That's ultimately what I was getting at when I said, like, it felt like they were leading toward a supernatural twist with that character, because we never see him again after a certain point. I mean, you know, I guess he just goes and gets the money, but we never really got his motivation or what he was all about, and he was probably the most interesting character in the entire piece.
Not probably, he was. 100% was.
Yeah, I mean, and he has this, like, unlimited supply of money to give to artists because they're gonna make, you know, horrible art for him. Like, I don't know. It's interesting character. Not enough of them.
No, snuff paintings is what they were making. So, yeah, this is a skip, a light skip, but it's kind of dorky, it's kind of goofy. So,
I like it. Watch the episode. Style to burn.
On that note, on the next episode of Chronicles from the Crypt, we're going to be talking about episode 9 and 10 of season 3, Undertaking Pallor, not Parlor, Undertaking Pallor, and Mornin' Mess. Get excited.
Oh boy.
Get excited.
I'm so excited right now.
When you and I are not doing Chronicles from the Crypt, where can people find you, Father Malone?
You can always find me on my YouTube channel, Ot5 Films. I have a show called You've Never Seen. You can also hear me on another podcast, Dreams for Sale, The Twilight Zone 85, looking back at the first, best, and, in my opinion, only reboot of The Twilight Zone.
I hate to tell you this, there are other reboots of the show.
Don't say that.
There are.
They're not real. I disavow them.
There are. I'm sorry to tell you, but there are. Just because you don't like the 2001 doesn't mean it doesn't happen.
It didn't happen.
Well, sorry, but it did. The Jonathan Davis thing is real bad. The Korn intro.
Yeah. Look, there's nothing good about that show. I mean, maybe. I don't know. Maybe there was an episode that was good. It just seemed wonky and stupid and filmed in Canada. That's what I thought.
I like how that's like the problem. It was filmed in Canada. Oh, God. And when I'm not on Chronicles from the Crypt, you can find me on the Culture Cast, a little movie podcast that I do where I'm joined by some folks and we talk about movies once a week. That is over at culturecast.com. Culture with a K and then a C in the center. Big thanks as always to John Kassir for the little ditty at the beginning, little intro, and we will catch you on the next episode of Chronicles from the Crypt.